say this because I'm a huge fan of yours. So let's start from the beginning. A lot of people know you from What Culture, but you do so many different things. But what kind of got you into wrestling? Let's start from the very beginning.
What got me into wrestling? Wow, that is a question. I mean, it was simple. I mean, my dad used to work in TV, so we were very lucky in my household, and that he got given Sky television over here in the UK quite early, when it wasn't really established, because he was told, you need to just go through this and see what it is, and report back to us and let us know. And I was just flipping through channels, and I was a kid. And I saw Bret Hart, always remember it, don't know how. I saw Bret Hart doing his thing. And something, I don't know what it was, whether it was a move, the atmosphere, whatever. Something just said to me, oh man, this is really cool. And from that day, I've been hooked. I've been absolutely hooked. My parents always thought I'd grow out of it, but I didn't. I took a couple of years off sort of during university, which I think many people do. But again, as soon as university was over and I was back to having access to watching it, yeah, I jumped back on. And even then, when it was on Channel 4, I remember for a while, I always made sure to check it out there. So yeah, it jumped into my brain and became something that I've now loved for close to, almost 30 years, because I'm old. That's, I can never explain it, but I think that's the same for a lot of fans.
And then obviously you got into sort of What Culture and doing YouTube with like the Miller Report. I remember them. So kind of what made you go, right, YouTube? And I definitely will, because especially with your YouTube channel now, your own one, you cover so much. But have you saw like a crossover of fans that sort of know you now from being a YouTuber / now pro wrestler, and then obviously the bodybuilding stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, I started doing the YouTube thing because I was working for a video games. Actually, they were just a magazine publisher, but I worked in their video game section. And I just kind of, I don't want to say I saw the writing on the wall, because that makes me sound like I'm far more intelligent than I am. But when YouTube was getting big, it wasn't even actually big, but when YouTube was a thing and more people were talking about it, I could just see the worth in it. I just could. I was like, oh man. And I did. I pushed. It's one of the reasons I left that job at the time. I pushed so hard to take these sort of multimedia things we were doing. I was like, let's take them off DVDs and let's put them on YouTube. But they didn't see it the same way as me, which I understood. They were trying to make a profit. And so, yeah, I kind of just put myself into I'm not going to tell you where, but if anybody wants to do some serious digging, you can find some awful Simon Miller YouTube clips from like 2008, and they are bad. But still, I was intrigued and I was fascinated by it, and that's never really died off. So yeah, if we say I started getting interested in it sort of 2010, it's been sort of 10 years of me trying to find my way with it. And yeah, my own channel, which a lot of people tell me is too nuts, and they are right, because my views are all over the place because I don't focus on one thing. But hey, that's my passion project, that little YouTube channel. But yeah, the interesting thing now is, when I am very privileged for somebody to come up and recognize me from something that I do, I have to ask, because sometimes it's the What Culture wrestling stuff. Sometimes it is just being a wrestler. And then recently, yeah, a few people came up to me and went, oh, I really love your fitness videos. And I was like, well, that's a trip. That is brand new. I had to question, like, what do you mean? How have you seen my fitness videos? But it's, I feel massively privileged to be in that position. And I always try and keep my feet on the ground, because it's you never know what's going to happen with something like YouTube. It could die tomorrow and then I become irrelevant. So that's why I do so much as well, like you mentioned. I feel so lucky to do what I do, and no day ever feels like work. So I just create and I make content. And there's probably a better way to go about that in terms of growth, but I'm trying to have a good time at the same time. So yeah.
And obviously, we have to mention congratulations as well with the whole 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's on my own channel. Yeah, the thing is with that is I'm massively proud of it. But YouTube has just screwed numbers for everybody, because, there are some channels out there that have 5 million subscribers and you've never even heard of the guy. He's just, he just has his own little, or she has their own little circle on YouTube. But yeah. I mean, for me, look, put it like this. I'm looking at it right now. Somebody sent me a plaque and said, well done for 100,000
You finally got the plaque.
Yeah.
Socials.
Absolutely. So I'll take that. If somebody is going to send me a plaque, I will take it as an achievement. And I do kind of take it as a double achievement, because all I've had since I started that channel was, Miller, you diversified too much. YouTube doesn't like that. And I'd be like, yes, I know. But then I'd be doing a disservice to myself, because I just want to make crazy nonsense. So if everything else that I'm involved with collapsed tomorrow, my YouTube channel would become predominantly wrestling. Of course it would do, because I'm not an idiot. But I'm very lucky in the sense I do have all these different avenues that I can throw myself into, which means my YouTube channel can just be mental. And that works for me.
That's the beauty of it, though. I think that's why people very much go, oh, that's really cool, because not many people go, right, because you're so well known on YouTube, to then go and do your own thing as well. That must be scary with being just known for like a lot of what culture stuff. We had a message in when I mentioned I was going to be interviewing you on the show. I think it was Jake in Kirby said he would like to know which was your favorite video of what culture that you've done so far.
Well, it's kind of an arrogant answer, but it's true. Nothing will be better than the I think it was the SmackDown after WrestleMania last year, when we were outside the Barclays Center, and we just got about, I don't know, it must have been about 50 to 60 people that saw us filming and came and formed a makeshift audience and just cheered along and did all the catchphrases and stuff. That was life affirming in many ways. I remember when I went home, I was like, well, this is rubbish. I much prefer it when people are cheering for me. So yeah, that was the best one. It was a really cool moment, because it was like people are watching. And sometimes you don't really think about that. You just make a video and you throw it out there. But this was genuinely like, oh, wow, people are watching and people care and people like it. And yeah, that just put a smile on my face, which is really all I need in life.
And that's another thing. You're so positive with your videos, and I feel like that's really needed, especially in times like this. Where did your kind of mindset go to, especially with like, obviously you probably had struggles being a YouTuber, going into the wrestling industry. How did you deal with that mentally? Because obviously a lot of people have career changes, they don't really can cope with it very well. Where was your head at when you went into that?
I've always been a positive guy, just one of those annoying people that tries to look at the glass half full and winds everybody up because of it. But in terms of, when I first started doing the YouTube stuff for What Culture, I still treat it like a job. So I was like, okay, well, I better go and see what the competition is doing to make sure I stand out. And every video I saw was just some negative Nancy. Oh, this was crap. That was rubbish. This was pile of whack. And I was like, why are you watching it? And it's fine. I know there's a market for that. And ultimately, as long as people are happy, I don't care, even if their happiness is within moaning. But I was like, well, look, I quite enjoy WWE for all its faults, because I don't take it that seriously, to be honest, in a good way. And I thought, I'm quite a positive guy. There's also seems to be a market for this positivity. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to throw myself into that. And as anybody knows that practices it, it's almost a fake it till you make it kind of a deal. So the more positive you act, the more positive you become. And that was the same when I transitioned to becoming a wrestler too. I probably got more negativity there, because you know what internet people are like, the YouTuber wants to become a wrestler, what a blah, blah, blah. But again, because I'd built up this approach to wrestling in general, I was like, dude, you can say whatever you want. The cool thing is that you care. Even if you care enough to come and tell me that I'm crap, that's much better than you having no idea who I am. So I was like, I'll take it. So that's the key. And look, it's not like some days you don't feel down and someone says something dumb and it gets to you. But as long as you're mindful of that, I kind of feel like those moments are they're fleeting, and you can always go find 100 other comments of people saying lovely things, should you so wish. I just don't even bother with it anymore. But yeah, that's all it was. I was like, well, I am positive about wrestling. Nobody else is being positive about wrestling. Let's put our hands together, and hey ho, here we are a few years later, and it seems to be doing all right.
I feel like I kind of need to address this and get your thoughts on this. The whole situation right now with the pandemic and wrestling. What's your thoughts of it? And should it be classed as like an essential business, do you think?
I mean, it shouldn't be classed as an essential business, no, just because it blurs the lines about what an essential business is. An essential business should be life and death, right? Do you need this thing to survive? With that said, I like to on the side of caution with this a little bit, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. WWE continuing to run has allowed me to do a lot of the stuff that I'm able to do, which has benefited me financially, and it's benefited me from an apprehension point of view, because, oh, thank goodness that's still going on. So all I can ever say is that as long as health and safety is the priority, and that if something goes wrong, we shut the whole thing down straight away, then I think as somebody in my position, that's all I really can. That's kind of the only feedback I can give. Like, I just, nothing is more important than life and death. It's just not. And like right now over here in England, I mean, you'll know, everyone's talking about the Premier League season starting up again. Yeah. And I can't fathom how you're able to do that given social distancing guidelines and medical care and PPE. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I will still defer to the fact, as long as you're putting health and safety first, I'll just let you run with it. Because I think it's silly to kind of jump on the other direction. And as of yet, WWE hasn't had anything like that. I think one person tested positive, but they weren't a wrestler, which obviously makes makes a massive difference. It's a rocky situation, but I think it's a rocky situation for everybody. But you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Personally, I would have shut it down because I feel like, well, look at the world right now. It's absolutely crazy. But it also, look, there's no point pretending otherwise. You may roll your eyes at it. Loads of people watched WrestleMania and enjoyed it. It did serve as a distraction. I think maybe the novelty's worn off a little bit, so it's not really doing that anymore, but that was always going to happen. But for a good month, it was something just to watch and, argue about and moan about, as opposed to looking out of your window. And that was a good thing. But it's so hard. It really is.
And you mentioned WrestleMania weekend. You were scheduled to have your first wrestling match in Florida, was it? Tampa. Yeah. What's the situation with that? Is it something that we're definitely going to go and see? Have you spoke to Sami Callihan at all?
Yeah, I mean, it will happen. When it will happen, I don't know, because we don't know. I don't even know when independent wrestling is going to start up again.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't think you can do independent wrestling in front of no fans, because where is the income going to come from? But as soon as we do get to the point where it is back, the What Culture death match between myself and Sami Callihan will happen. Whether it happens in America, whether it happens over here, whether we go to another location that is yet to be determined, we're both game for that. We planted some seeds. There is also a plan for some fallout, which is going to, help everybody involved. So, yeah, it will go down. I can't give any more information right now because I just don't know. But that did suck. Not only was it going to be my first match in America, but against Sami Callihan, a guy that most people know, and my first death. Oh, man, it would have been awesome. But look, loads of people lost opportunities like that. The key is we will do it as soon as we can.
Let's get back to kind of your wrestling in-ring style, because I've watched several of your matches, especially when you kind of came out. And I like the kind of fact that you came out as like that cheesy sort of, I'm a wrestling fan entrance, and it was just so honest, and you already had that so quote-unquote gimmick. It was just you, and not many people have that as a wrestler. A lot of people struggle trying to find the gimmick that works for them. You already had the YouTube stuff with the whole here's why, and it kind of just worked. Was that just the plan, or did you just like, hey, I'm just going to embrace this and just go with it?
Yeah, well, it was kind of like, because we'd done the whole wrestling training stuff on What Culture, I couldn't then come out as like, Baron von Fruit. Everyone would be like, this is Simon Miller. I know that. I know it 100%. So, yeah, that kind of tied in. And I was told off so badly for how much I smiled on my debut. But like you said, it was all real. I was the happiest person alive, and I don't even care. I kind of think that's changing now, though, because, you get to a point where not everyone's going to know the why stuff or the ups and downs. So I was trying to shift before everything happened. But, yeah, it just made sense to me. It was like, you got to know your audience, as people say. And at the moment, when I first get into wrestling, the people that I'm trying to appeal to are the people that will already have seen me on What Culture. So let's double down on all of that stuff. Let's get them to shows. And then once that bubble bursts, which it always does, because people get used to it. Oh, Miller's a wrestler. Well, I know that. I've seen him for the last couple of years. That's when you kind of have to rethink again. And I think we kind of had just entered that stage. And I had done a lot of work. I had new ring gear made and everything to try and make that transition. But again, things got in the way. But yeah, the idea of being a fan that becomes a wrestler, I think, will always be at the heart of it. But now it's just more about wrestling it up a little bit and giving it some depth and giving it an idea. But yeah, it's always a work in progress. And the cool thing is that I still really enjoy it. And that's what I say to everybody. As long as you're enjoying something, it doesn't even matter where it goes. Obviously, it going all the way to the top and to the moon is the best. But even if it doesn't, if it's something you can look forward to and something that, you enjoy spending your time on, then you've won. You really, really have.
And obviously with What Culture and the WCPW stuff, did that help you working on stuff like that, going into being a pro wrestler, being able to kind of maybe get advice off Matt, like the likes of Matt Hardy, and interviewing like Big Show and stuff, being around them time to time?
Yeah, I mean, they offered me sort of small bits of advice, as much as you can get from a star of that ilk in the short time you have with them. But I think the good thing about WCPW and then Defiant, when it transitioned into its name, was that I knew I had a goal. Have a wrestling match in WCPW. Unfortunately, I missed that, but I got it in Defiant, and that helped me keep focused. And obviously, it gave me a platform. And one of the hardest things when you're trying to become a professional wrestler, especially now, is, well, where do you go when you're ready to go? And I was so blessed that somebody reached out to me and went, Miller, we'll put you in our Rumble. And I was like, great, I didn't have to do anything. So yeah, it helped me no end. And again, it acted as a dangling carrot. So, and I can never say thank you enough because I was quite scared about making my debut. I'm not ashamed to admit that. But they reached out and said, Miller, let's do this. And without that, who knows what I would have done? So yeah, I owe Defiant so much and everybody involved, and I miss it. It sucks that it's no longer here.
Yeah, I feel like the whole British scene misses it because it was such a statement of the whole independent wrestling scene. For a while, it was the promotion, I feel.
Yeah.
When you kind of look at your matches so far, is there ones that kind of stand out more than others that you kind of was like, yeah, that was my favourite one so far?
I had a match with David Starr that people will know if you're into independent wrestling, and there's a reason he's, considered one of the best, because he is one of the best, and he taught me so much. So that is, but yeah, there are other matches that I've had kind of here and there. Like I had one down at UPW against Dan McGee, which I was really, really proud of, and unfortunately don't have the footage of at all, which sucks. But I need to watch it back. But I remember going away going, I feel like that was good. Now I've thought that about other things and watched it back and went, you were incorrect. But yeah, I mean, I've been able to wrestle. For me, I'm never actually going to be happy with my performance. I'm just one of those characters. It's the same with my videos. I self-critique because I think that's a good way to grow. But when you have a good match with somebody and they tell you afterwards, and that's the cool thing to me. Like the amount of people I've been able to wrestle. I got to wrestle, Johnny Storm, who has been doing this for years, and and Andy Simmons too. Guys that I used to read about in magazines when I was growing up. And they carried me to more than passable matches. I didn't do anything. It was all there. Martin Kirby, too. Exactly the same thing. Nathan Cruz. All these guys went out of their way to, again, bring me up to their level. And it helped me no end because of the experience I got. Because you've always got to work up in professional wrestling. If you're working against someone better than you, you will walk away a better wrestler yourself as long as you're open and listening. So, yeah, they're the kind of names that come. But I appreciate every match that I have. There was one point when I thought I was never going to do it. So now the fact that I get to have, a couple of I was having a couple of matches a week. That's awesome.
Because I feel like it was around Christmas time. I saw a lot on like socials and YouTube of you doing a lot of matches in a short period of time. Was that your best period, would you say?
Oh, yeah, with everything. The last sort of 6 months really picked up. And I was wrestling every weekend, sometimes doing it in the week. I was going up to Scotland, Manchester, Liverpool. I was going down south to everywhere. I was going everywhere, like South Coast, West Coast, everywhere. And I felt like I had some momentum going. And, when you do feel like you have some momentum going, then other people get in touch and say, oh, Miller. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I had to turn some bookings down. I was like, this is great.
Because at that period, obviously, you had the head injury for a little bit. So that you started, then stopped, and then picked up a lot of momentum. And now with this.
Well, I didn't mind that. I minded at the time, but it was a good learning curve to make sure that you enjoy this stuff. Because you never know how quickly it can be taken away from you. So, I mean, I didn't want to be injured, but actually there was a lot to learn from that as well, which is what it's all about, like I say. So, yeah, it sucked and it hurt, but I am kind of glad it happened in retrospect.
I want to throw something out there. I saw you're on Chris Van Vliet's YouTube channel, which was absolutely amazing. Great interview. And I know he's got a background in wrestling. Will we ever see Sam Miller go against Chris Van Vliet?
I think we'd probably be a tag team because we're too nice and we're too friendly. But yeah, no, I'd love to do it. I love Chris. Chris is really good at what he does. Again, he found his niche and he doubled down on it. He absolutely smashed it. And it's he's been fair enough to interview me twice. I don't know why he needs to interview twice, but I do massively appreciate it. But yeah, why the hell not? I think if people want to see it, that's, professional wrestling is a promotion-driven sport, right? Or entertainment, whatever. So if people want to see that, I'll do it, and I'll lay down for him too. He can win. Anyway, how about that?
Oh, see, you're the nicer one. I feel like it'll be the battle of he will let the other person win.
The thing is, I won't get into it, but I've seen so many locker rooms with people arguing about not losing. I've never had that thought in my life. I don't care. Bigger picture, man. Just lose in the right way, right?
And make it a good show. I want to talk a little bit about the locker room going in as the YouTuber. Was that sort of hard?
Yes. I won't name names because it's not fair. I like to think I've turned a corner now, but you never do it 100%. Because there is still this idea, like I say, of people being like, oh, the YouTuber wants to be a wrestler. As if I didn't train and I just thought I deserved it, which was never the case. No, but that's what people thought, which is fine. Everyone's allowed their own opinion, but it just was incorrect. So I imagine that's still there. There was one particular run-in, which, again, I can't talk about because it's it's unprofessional. But yeah, I've had a few clashes, but that's okay because I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for the YouTube stuff. Plus, I love the YouTube stuff. So if that has to come with a few ups and downs, then that's all good. You know, that I can take it. That's the thing. I have thick enough skin and I have enough self-worth that I can take it. So if people want to take shots at me, that's great. I'll try and prove them wrong by becoming a really good wrestler. And then people can go, he's just a YouTuber, and somebody else will go, yeah, but he's actually all right. So that's the goal. The goal is to take their words and shove it down their own throat.
No, but the way I see it is you're bringing possibly more of an audience, maybe from YouTube, maybe from the fitness, and bringing more eyes on the wrestling product as well.
Yeah, maybe. You never know, but I'd like to think that I have some worth in that sense, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you should look at it, 100%. But obviously we had the Black Wednesday with WWE a couple of weeks ago, with so many releases. Rusev on there. I'm so heartbroken by that.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think he'll end up in AEW?
I mean, I would take him on. I don't think he'd be one of these people where fans would go, oh, another ex-WWE guy, because he never really got to make his mark in WWE. Like, He had a good run, but he didn't have the run that I think a lot of people wanted. So, yeah, out of all of those guys, I think Rusev is somebody that deserves a chance on a bigger stage. Not on a bigger stage, but on a big stage in general. Obviously, WWE is massive. But he's not a guy that should just vanish onto the independent scene. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just think there's more to him. That's it. And I think AEW would be a great fit for that. I think he offers them something different because he's a different character to what they have already. I hope it happens. But obviously, at the moment, we're not going to know anything for a while. But if I was in charge of AEW, he would be the first guy on that list that I would call up and say, hey, do you want to come in? I don't think that's doing a disrespect to the talent you've already got. I genuinely think that's an acquisition that is going to help you going forward, because the man got super over in WWE. It was just the rug was pulled out from under him. So imagine doing that in front of a crowd that is eager to cheer. I think he could be a megastar. I really do.
And then you think of the matches he could have with like Omega, even Cody in there. Like that's mouthwatering at the least.
And he wrestles different to all those guys.
Yeah.
He's not your quintessential independent wrestler, which is the term people like to use. He has a different style, and that's massively important. He's more of a brawler, more of a brute, obviously ties into his nickname. And that opens up the door for more interesting matches too. Even if you do someone like, Trent versus Rusev. Well, that's interesting. That's something I never thought I'd see. So, yeah, to me, Rusev, get him in the door tomorrow or in 90 days, whenever his thing is up.
You mentioned his kind of wrestling technique and the way he wrestles and stuff. I want to talk a little bit about your in-ring style. Because I saw that completely change from like your first match from in Defiant. How would you say it's progressed in your words?
Well, I'd like to think I've got better. I mean, I'll have somebody else tell me that as opposed to me stood here and say that. But I'd like to think I've got better.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimately, though, I don't know if I've got... I mean, my style is... I don't like to say old school because that sounds ridiculous. But if you've got a card with 6, 7, 8 matches on it, and 7 matches are going to be and I've got no problem with this. I love this kind of match, but it's going to be spot. 9 times out of 10, my match will be the story-driven match, the slower pace kind of a match, the selling of a move kind of a match. And that's not because, by default, it's because that's the match that I think that I'm best at. So it's the one I'm trying to embrace. I can remember a few spots, but then I forget and I look like an idiot. So yeah, I've been trying to embrace that and really just double down on the whole character work too. And I think it's coming together. That's why I wanted to have so many matches, because everybody says you've got to get your reps in pro wrestling, which is what I was trying to do. So yeah, I think it's all coming together, but I think my style will be, more of a brawler, for lack of a better term. Make your moves mean something, powerhouse, all these ridiculous terms that people use. But I think that's what I'm trying to bring together. But I also think in British wrestling, independent wrestling, that there is kind of a niche for that, because most people will be high flyers, which is great. It gives me a really corner to sit in.
It does, because that's my worry with wrestling right now. It's just high spot after high spot after high spot, and it does get very repetitive very quickly. So it's kind of refreshing to see that kind of old school mentality coming back into it. Because I know you're a big fan of Triple H growing up. And you can kind of see that in your in-ring style a little bit, and I quite like that. I kind of like that old school vibe. If you could pick, I know you've done top 10 lists, but if you could pick put your own wrestling event on and pick main events, who would be on it? Who would be your dream matches to kind of see?
Oh wow, that's a question. I mean, it's kind of, but it depends on context and it depends on time periods. I mean, my main event would be Goldberg versus Austin, because obviously when those two guys are at the peak of their powers, I was at the peak of my wrestling fandom as a kid, right? And you can never love it as much as you do when you're a kid. You just can't. No. It's impossible. So that would definitely be on there. Down the card, I don't know. That's really, really hard. I mean, probably something like Ricky Steamboat versus Kenny Omega. Something, just these two, just two people that, the guy that probably got me into technical wrestling versus the guy who now I think is not technical wrestling, but that kind of style, that workman horse style. Something like that. I mean, the Young Bucks versus, oh man, what kind of tag team would you want to put in there with those guys? I don't even know now. I can't even think of anything. But yeah, I think I would go for a lot of the dream matches that we never got to see. Like Hulk Hogan versus Austin would be another one. I'd have Austin work. Work twice.
Austin.
Yeah, that too. Never got to see that kind of thing too. I mean, if you want to start crossing the pond, someone like Antonio Inoki, who, if you're into Japanese wrestling, was this just absolute beast of a. It was kind of like a Hulk Hogan. He didn't even have to do much, and people would lose their minds. But imagine, I know that Inoki and Hogan fought, but imagine putting that in a Western arena where usually fans are going to be louder. Or imagine taking somebody now like, I'm trying to like Cody, for example. Cody, who gets these incredible reactions when he comes out. And imagine you went and got, I don't know, a Tanahashi or anyone to come over into that environment. I just think it would be crazy. In terms of the technical match, though, I always wanted to see Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle. That was something that I always thought would be awesome because obviously Kurt Angle was untouchable for a while. Bret Hart to me is the best technical wrestler ever. Same with Daniel Bryan versus Bret Hart or a Kurt Angle versus a Daniel Bryan, something like that. It would be. I mean, Daniel Bryan pretty much with anybody because Daniel Bryan doesn't have bad matches.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah, I think if they had pulled the trigger on the Daniel Bryan-Shawn Michaels match too, when they teased that years ago, obviously Shawn Michaels being Daniel Bryan's trainer, I thought that would have been wonderful. But hey-ho. And also Undertaker versus Sting. I know, boring, but it works, right?
Do you know what?
It works.
It's actually in my top 5 list of definitely dream matches I want to see, even now.
Of course. Yeah,
especially
course,
with
man.
this kind of new takeout. What have you made of it?
Do a boneyard match. Match between them. Neither of them's going to get hurt. Doesn't matter they're injured. Everybody will love it. And you've just come up with a new way to prevent professional wrestling, which is what we've wanted for ages. Do it with Undertaker and Sting.
We've got it sorted right here, my friend. Right.
I know. That's why it won't happen, though. That's why it won't happen. Every time the fans get it sorted, it never happens in the big leagues. Devastating.
Or WWE do something similar and just take all the credit, usually.
That's fine. I don't mind. Just do it.
I want to get your thoughts on the AEW product because it's been, coming up to a year now since it's launched, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
What have you made of it as a whole so far?
I love it. I think it's really, really good. You're not allowed to say that because it means you're biased and you hate every other wrestling company there is. But I love All Elite Wrestling. I think it mixes old school with new school. I think it mixes comedy with, again, that independent wrestling style. They push the tag teams. People like Kenny Omega could be presented as a massive star, which they will in the future, but they're taking their time. I think Cody has found his old feet. I love people like Orange Cassidy. It's introduced me to wrestlers like Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, who I didn't know much about, and Chris Statlander. To me, it's a breath of fresh air. Like, as fans, we don't have to worry about the financials of either company. I want both to do well, but we don't have to worry about it. We just don't. It doesn't matter to us. So I just want entertaining and I want things to be creative. And I do think ever since AEW came around, Raw is better, SmackDown's better, NXT is better. And that is a great thing all round. Do I like everything AEW does? Of course not. But that's the same with television programs I watch. I don't expect to watch a movie for 3 hours and go, well, I liked every single thing about that movie. There'll be some things I like and some things I like less. And that's why I try to remember that when I'm watching Dynamite. But I also think that they pretty much nailed it week in, week out so far. And I love investing in these new characters. Like Lance Archer, I knew a lot about, and I'd watch his New Japan work. But now I feel like he's a brand new wrestler that I get to experience. And it doesn't sound like he was going to get his due anywhere else. And, I watch NXT, but it's just, having a new promotion comes with it a fresh lick of paint. And that novelty will wear off again, as we talked about earlier. But right now it hasn't. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it's great.
And as we've mentioned a little bit about AEW, I think it's only fair now we talk a little bit about WWE going forward. I know we're in this whole weird situation right now, but I feel like creatively it's probably in the best place it's been in a while.
Yep, I agree. I think that,
that's something we can keep. Do you reckon Vince will keep that? Is it? Or do you reckon it'll go back to being scripted a little bit more?
I mean, you never know, right? Because Vince McMahon seems to change his mind on a daily basis. But I think the good thing is, treating Drew McIntyre like a strong, in-control babyface. We haven't seen that for a while with a guy when they first got the championship. No. So that's going to work. Seth Rollins being turned back to a heel when the fans kind of turned their backs on him. Great stuff. Never used to happen. Kind of got ignored. So I think we are moving in the right direction. And the point is, it's better now than it was 6 months ago. So as long as it's even better in 6 months' time, I think everything will write itself out. I know people are panicking about the ratings, but you can't take them. You have to take them at face value. We're in a pandemic right now. TV ratings aren't important. So hopefully sort of by the end of the year, we'll be through it and we can see where we're at. But no, I agree. I think Raw's a better show. SmackDown, I think, is a bit hit and miss these days. I think they relied too much on that Fox audience, but it will get there. But no, I think WWE is in a much better state than it was this time 2019, outside of, creatively, I should say. And yeah, I look forward to the shows. And that's all I need as a fan.
And I was reading kind of stories and I've watched some clips on YouTube about this news story. I don't know how much how legit it is. But Aleister Black possibly linking to be a main eventer for next year's WrestleMania.
Yeah, why not?
What's
right?
your thoughts on that? And who would you put him against?
I mean, I'd probably put him against Drew McIntyre if the plan goes right, because then you're going to make both guys even bigger than they are. It doesn't even matter if Aleister Black doesn't make it there. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I want WWE to try. And if they don't think that it's working, okay, cool, shift gears. The most important part is you put him in put him in that situation to begin with. There's no reason why he can't do it. Aleister Black is great. But if we can get to WrestleMania 37 and do an Aleister Black, Drew McIntyre main event that has buzz about it as well, and has fans wanting to tune in, then not only have you made Drew McIntyre, Aleister Black is clearly someone you've got to keep an eye on. And you've kind of circumvented this problem of the nostalgia. You have to have nostalgia. Well, no, we don't. Because look what we're doing. And I kind of hope that's WWE's goal at the moment. So, and I never mind Goldberg coming back. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I love Goldberg. Of course I do. And if that's wrong, that's wrong. But he can't come back all the time.
No.
It's the law of diminishing returns. So, yeah, if we can get to the point where both those guys feel important, then it's only going to benefit going forward.
Because I know Paul Heyman, it seems like he's really keen on Aleister Black. Because I was thinking maybe Aleister Black, Matt Riddle, as you could something on WrestleMania, maybe if booked right. That would be
it would be good. I think it all depends where Matt Riddle is, how he's been presented. But yeah, you can do anything. It's all about giving the right guy the right push at the right time and pulling the trigger. If you do all those things, usually wrestling can be quite simple.
And I want to kind of talk to you because there's I don't know if you've seen this on Netflix yet. I got that bored in isolation. The Big Show has a show. Have you watched it yet?
No, but I am going to. It looks like proper cheesy American trash programming. But I love cheesy American trash programming. So, and I'm sure the Big Show was well aware of what it was. He's not a dumb person. So, yeah, I will watch that. When, I don't know, but it's certainly lined up to go, yeah.
But it's kind of made me realize, like, WWE or, well, wrestling TV programs or films, what's been your favorite one?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I mean, favorite wrestling...
Mine would be Fighting with My Family. I feel like that was...
I really enjoyed Fighting with My Family. It was a very easy to watch film, so I would put that in there. I like Suburban Commando because it was rubbish, and as a kid, I just thought it's so weird that all these wrestlers are in this movie. Yeah, Nacho Libre is quite good, actually. I mean, it kind of takes the mick out. I think probably The Wrestler is the best one with Mickey Rourke. That's a really boring answer, but it's such an amazing film and ties into, these tragic stories that some wrestlers have had. So, and on the documentary side of things, Beyond the Mat too. Beyond the Mat to me was my first, hey, look, let's look behind the scenes when it comes to pro wrestling. I was mesmerized by it. So, yeah, that was unbelievable.
And quickly, I know, obviously, we're in this situation, you can't plan that much ahead, but have you got bookings later on in the year? Where can people see you?
I do have bookings, but I won't shout them out because, I who even knows? Some people are saying they're going to start up again in June. I don't think it's going to happen, upsettingly. I hope I'm wrong. But for the time being, yeah. I mean, if you just follow me on Twitter at Simon316, Instagram is the same one. Hit me up on YouTube, just search for Simon Miller. I always make sure to throw my dates out there. But as soon as somebody tells me I am allowed to wrestle again, yeah, I'm very lucky in the sense that there's a good few promoters who are ready to put them back in the diary. So fingers crossed. And
I just want to talk a little bit about in-ring psychology and stuff. How did you find that becoming a pro wrestler? Was that something you struggled with, or is it something that came naturally, being quite charismatic, being on YouTube and stuff?
I don't think I'm there with it yet. I'll say that. I think that's a bit like, walking down a dark tunnel that goes on forever. You never actually get to the end of it because you need to just try and figure everything out. I learn more every time I have a match. I think it's the key thing to put in there. But yeah, psychology is the hardest part because you can learn how to do 1,000 moves, but if you don't know when to do them, then what's the point? And trying to listen to the fans and then adapt on the fly is super hard. But it's also the super rewarding part too. So I think I'm slowly getting there. I'm probably still a little bit too green to actually lose myself in the moment, which I think you need to do when it comes to psychology. But I like to think that I kind of have a good understanding of it with how much wrestling I've watched for my quote unquote proper job. And hopefully I can bring that across. I'm not there yet, there. I'm still green. I understand that it takes a good while before you really find your feet with wrestling, but I like that. I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be something I can look back on and go, oh man, look how far I've come. Which I do feel like I've literally just celebrated my 2-year anniversary after my debut. I do feel like I've come a long way, but there's still so far to go. And I think psychology will be that thing that's, will come at the very end.
You mentioned the anniversary of your debut. Obviously, it was very, you just covered it a lot on What Culture at the time. Did that add more pressure to it? What was the What Culture guys like with it?
Well, they were great with it. It was more pressure, but it's pressure I put on myself, right? Because I decided to document the whole thing on YouTube. But again, I wouldn't be in the position to have that debut in front of that audience without it. So while it was more pressure, I would never change it for the world. And let's not pretend I didn't love it. I 100% loved it. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I like to put myself in the eye of the tornado, right? Cheesy saying, but it's true. I like it. I don't like to take things easy. I like to throw myself into things with aplomb. So, yeah, all good by me.
No, I feel like that a lot of people, that's why everyone absolutely loves you. And you have so many fans because you have that positive mental attitude, and honestly it rubs off on a lot of people.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you, I appreciate it.
But very quickly, very tough question now. If you could do kind of a top 5 list of people you've learned the most from in ring as a wrestler, who would it be?
In ring?
Yeah.
Oh man, well, it's not really the correct answer, but I always have to shout out Al Snow, because he trained me. I never had a match with him, but again, he trained me, and I would not be here without him. In terms of in-ring, Speedball Mike Bailey, who I've never had a match with, but is so into professional wrestling. If you're on the same card, he will watch your match and he will come and give you feedback. And every time he's watched one of my matches, he'll give me, an incredible amount of feedback that I massively appreciate. David Starr, as we talked about earlier, Andy Simmons, Johnny Storm, all these guys came and took me to one side. My man Jack Sexsmith couldn't have gone out of his way more again to help me. Same with Martin Kirby and Nathan Cruz, and those two are specific because I was fighting them way before I should have been in a position to fight them because of Defiant, and neither of them tried to crap over me. They tried to say, no, we'll do it like this, we'll do it like that. Same with HT Drake. All of these 3 guys could have easily gone, well, he's the rookie, screw him, and it would have been fine. That's usually what happens, but they didn't. They went the other way, and they were like, well, let's try and give him some knowledge and some experience so that if we have a match again, he'll sort of move up the totem pole a little bit. Same with Yestin Reese. I fought Yestin Reese in EWE, and he just gave me stuff. And Joel Redmond, all those guys, they didn't have to give me as much as they did, but I'm in a better place because of it.
And obviously, Martin Kirby's another one. I think you had a match with him. Was it in Defiant, maybe?
Well, yeah, one of my first matches, yeah.
And honestly, that's still, I rewatched it the other day. Still one of my favourite matches.
Thank you, man. I can't watch it because I feel like I'm better now than I was then, so I struggle. But I will take that. I appreciate it.
Honestly, it's such a good watch, and I suggest anyone you should go and watch it. Is there any kind of matches you go back and kind of watch or try and take stuff from, being a pro wrestler now?
My own matches or other matches?
Other matches or both?
Well, I watch all my own matches back. I learned very quickly that's imperative because you think you're doing one thing in the ring and you watch it back and you're like, nope. And yeah, the cool thing about this experience is that now when I watch wrestling, I do watch it completely differently. I watch it through different eyes. And I don't mean that means, I understand wrestling now. I'm not saying that. I just mean sometimes things make more sense to me because I can understand why they're doing it just because I've had a different experience elsewhere. So I would say that my respect and my admiration for wrestling has gone up hugely. It was big to begin with. And that can only be a good thing to me. Put yourself in these kind of situations. And again, educate yourself. But yeah, no, I study matches now as opposed to watch them, which sometimes can suck, but I think ultimately it will help me down the line. So yeah, it's not a bad thing.
And we mentioned the whole YouTube stuff earlier with your own channel. Where can people check that out? Obviously, YouTube. What's the...
Yeah, just search for Simon Miller and I'll come up and wear my old wrestling singlet in the thumbnail. And yeah, you can just catch my barrage of nonsense that I make every single day. Should you so wish, it is there for you.
I suggest you should. It definitely helps, especially with isolation. I wish you well, and because we've been on call for like 40 minutes, and I know you're probably even super busy in this period because it's you. So I do super appreciate that.
I'd try. It's all good, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Anytime, you're welcome back on anytime, my friend.
Thank you very much, man. Take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you. I'll just stop recording.